Back in November of 2019, Rob Skiba gave this phenomenal hour-long presentation where he talked about a whole bunch of stuff. And in an effort to keep things systematized as science requires, I thought I'd comment on what he shared, expound on that, and provide some sources as to what he was talking about, to make it easy for others to look into this for themselves. Previously, we talked about Thomas Kuhn's phases of science, and how the mainstream enters certain paradigms, or phases where they say, this is true, and they stop being skeptical about that topic. Then down the road, certain observations might come along that don't add up with the mainstream view of things. This can put them into a state of crisis, where they suddenly become unsure of things, and they start criticizing and questioning their paradigm. Evolution is one such paradigm. While I was attending Dixie State University, getting my bachelor's degree in science, and took biology, they treated evolution exactly that way. They were quick to teach that all life on Earth originated from some kind of pond scum as a common ancestor, and they treated it as if it were a proven fact. But if we open our eyes today, that isn't a unanimous opinion in the realms of mainstream science.
I'm skeptical of the claim.
I'm skeptical.
I'm skeptical.
Yes,
skeptical.
We are skeptical
of claims for the ability of
random mutations
And natural selection.
To account for the complexity of life. A careful examination
Of the evidence.
For Darwinian theory
should be encouraged.
skeptical.
Skeptical.
Skeptical. Skeptical.
Skeptical
of claims
for the ability
of random mutations
and natural selection
to account for
the complexity.
The complexity.
to account for the complexity of life.
Careful examination
Of
the evidence.
For Darwinian theory
should be encouraged.
So we have a crisis in cosmology and apparently a crisis in biology going on at the same time.
And their list of evolutionary skeptics is nothing shabby to sneer upon. Their list is seriously 28 pages long of signatures like these. This is what a mainstream scientific crisis looks like. DescentFromDarwin.org is a great resource if you want to see mainstream scientists challenging other mainstream scientists on the matter. Here are 3 principles that they challenge them with. Number 1, mutations cause harm and do not build complexity. Number 2 is biochemistry. An unguided and random process cannot produce cellular complexity. And number 3 is paleontology. The fossil record lacks intermediate fossils. But we have to be careful and be very specific because Darwinists tend to use doublespeak on that matter. The word intermediate means 2 things.
In paleontology, intermediate doesn't mean what we think it means. Like my parents are intermediate between me and my Gam Gam and Pop Pop.
Oh, hello, sweetie.
By intermediate, paleontologists usually mean a fossil is merely morphologically intermediate. In other words, if a fossil has features of a supposed ancestor and descendant, then it is classified as an intermediate or transitional fossil. But with that definition, I would be a morphological intermediate between this jockey and this professional basketball player. But that doesn't say anything about lineage, whether I'm an ancestor or descendant of either one. We could be completely unrelated, or even chronologically out of order, that wouldn't matter. The very thing they're trying to prove, the ancestral relationship, or how they came about, is pure assumption. This is how they can say there's tons of intermediate fossils and be technically correct, while at the same time skeptics can say, yeah, there aren't really any intermediate fossils, and also be correct.
Doublespeak. Language that deliberately distorts, disguises, obscures, hides, or reverses the meaning of words.
The fossil evidence is so meager that Darwinists, in order to prove evolutionary ancestry, they have to use a slippery definition that no one would accept in other areas of life. This is common practice in evolutionary analysis, to ignore where species actually show up in the fossil record and place them wherever makes Darwinian sense.
That looks like straight up lying to me.
creating what are called chronological inversions, or ghost lineages. The fossil record often reveals fossils out of the order that they're supposed to be in. For just a couple of other examples, let's take a look at bird evolution. It's supposed to go theropod dinosaurs evolving into birds, with the fossil Archaeopteryx being evidence of this as an intermediate fossil. But the problem is he appears long before the dinosaurs he was supposed to have descended from. Evolution also got a big stick in its spokes with this guy, Tiktaalik, a fish-like creature that was for years crowned as the smoking gun transitional fossil of fish starting to go from the sea to the land. Brilliant evidence, just what they expected. Until in 2010, fossil footprints of true tetrapods were found in Poland, long before they were supposed to have evolved. And all of a sudden Tiktaalik was dethroned as a transitional fossil because, again, the dates are all out of order. Hey everybody, I'd like you to meet my grandpa. Oh, so cute. Is that his name, or... No, his name is Seymour. He is my grandpa. What? Doesn't make any sense.
So you can see where it appears that they are trying to force a narrative where it doesn't belong, and how this kind of behavior can create trust issues. And that's just the beginning.
How many of you have heard that we share 98% of our genome with chimpanzees? Have you guys heard that before? Taught in school? You know, that's one of the reasons they say we evolved from apes, because we supposedly share 98% of our genome with chimps. Okay, the clip I'm about to show you is not from a creationist. It's from an evolutionary-minded group of people describing how they got those numbers. Check it out.
It's often said that we humans share 50% of our DNA with bananas, 80% with dogs, and 99% with chimpanzees. Taken literally, those numbers make it sound like we could pluck one cell from a chimp and one from a human, pull out the tangled bundles of DNA known as chromosomes, unroll each one like a scroll, and read off two nearly identical strings of letters. But in reality, the human and chimp scrolls don't sync up so easily. When researchers sat down to compare the chimp and human genomes, those single letter differences were easy to tally, but the big mismatch sections weren't. For example, if a genetic paragraph, thousands of letters long, appears twice in a human scroll, but only once in its chimp counterpart, should that second human copy count as thousands of changes, or just one? And what about identical paragraphs that appear in both genomes, but in different places, or in reverse order, or broken up into pieces? Rather than monkey around with these difficult questions, the researchers simply excluded all the large mismatch sections, a whopping 1.3 billion letters in all, and performed a letter-by-letter comparison on the remaining 2.4 billion, which turned out to be 98.77% identical.
Oh yeah, we are 98.77% identical, if you ignore all this other stuff. This definitely appears to be another instance of trying to force a narrative where it doesn't belong. Stunts like that are gonna cause some trust issues.
Yes, we share 99% of our DNA with chimps if we ignore 18% of their genome and 25% of ours.
25 plus 18. That is 43%. That is a lot to ignore there. If you check her video's description, she has a link to Science magazine to further substantiate her claim here, along with a peer-reviewed article from Nature.
And there's another problem. Just as a small tweak in a sentence can alter its meaning entirely, or not at all, a few mutations in DNA sometimes produce big changes in a creature's looks or behavior, whereas other times, lots of mutations make very little difference. So just counting up the number of genetic changes doesn't really tell us that much about how similar or different two creatures are.
Right, wow, okay. And this is why more and more scientists, even secular scientists, are starting to steer away from the standard Darwinian model. It's so full of holes and assumptions. In fact, when Francis Crick and James Watson discovered DNA, they immediately knew this could not have evolved by random chance mutation. So what is their solution? Aliens! Aliens must have done it, right? The late Nobel Prize winner, Professor Francis Crick, along with British chemist Leslie Oriel, proposed the theory of directed panspermia in 1973. A co-discoverer of the double helical structure of DNA molecule, Crick found it impossible that the complexity of DNA could have evolved naturally. So good thing Giorgio wasn't around back then, right? Panspermia, I don't know, therefore aliens. The idea of panspermia was born. The idea of ancient aliens must have seeded our world. kick-started evolution. And this is now becoming the new standard. Thus, when asked if intelligent design was a plausible solution to the evolution of man, this is what Professor Richard Dawkins had to say.
But there aren't two theories. There's only one theory around. There's only one game in town as far as serious science is concerned. Of course, you get negative reactions from creationists, but who cares about creationists? They don't know anything.
We're Johnny-come-latelys. We live in the cosmic boondocks. We emerged from microbes and muck. Apes are our cousins.
You don't believe that the Earth is round only if you're an astronaut. You don't believe Napoleon existed only if you're a historian. You believe these things because they're facts proved by evidence. Evolution is also a demonstrated fact. The truth really is out there. It's not a matter of opinion.
Whew. The evolutionary paradigm is strong with this one. Everyone, this is Richard Dawkins, one of the leading experts on Darwinism today. And Rob Skiba's next clip is from an interview Ben Stein had with him in his documentary, Expelled.
You have written that God is a psychotic delinquent invented by mad, deluded people.
No, I didn't say quite that. I said something rather better than that.
Oh, well, please tell us what you said. Please tell us what you said.
Well, I would have to read it from the book.
No, please.
The God of the Old Testament is arguably the most unpleasant character in all fiction. Jealous and proud of it. A petty, unjust, unforgiving control freak. A vindictive, bloodthirsty ethnic cleanser. A misogynistic, homophobic, racist, infanticidal, genocidal, filicidal, pestilential, megalomaniacal, sadomasochistic, capriciously malevolent bully.
Wow, so he definitely doesn't appear indifferent on that matter, and doesn't shy away from painting himself as an antichrist. That very much sounds to me like a man with a personal vendetta.
So that's what you think of God?
Yeah.
So you believe it's liberating to tell people that there is no God?
I think a lot of people, when they give up God, feel a great sense of release and freedom.
Well, then who did create the heavens and the earth?
Why do you use the word who? You see, you immediately beg the question by using the word who.
Well, then how did it get created?
Well, by a very slow process.
Well, how did it start?
Nobody knows how it started. We know the kind of event that it must have been. We know the sort of event that must have happened for the origin of life.
And what was that?
It was the origin of the first self-replicating molecule.
Right, and how did that happen?
I told you we don't know.
So you have no idea how it started?
No, nor has anybody.
Nor has anyone else.
Evolution is a fact. It's documented by science.
Right, and how did that happen?
I told you we don't know. Believe these things because they're facts proved by evidence.
So you have no idea how it started?
No, nor has anybody.
Nor has anyone else. What do you think is the possibility that intelligent design might turn out to be the answer to some issues in genetics or in evolution?
It could come about in the following way. It could be that at some earlier time, somewhere in the universe, a civilization evolved by probably some kind of Darwinian means to a very, very high level of technology and designed a form of life that they seeded onto perhaps this planet. Now, that is a possibility and an intriguing possibility. And I suppose it's possible that you might find evidence for that if you look at the details of biochemistry and molecular biology. You might find a signature of some sort of designer.
Wait a second. Richard Dawkins thought intelligent design might be a legitimate pursuit?
And that designer could well be a higher intelligence from elsewhere in the universe. Well, but that higher intelligence would itself have had to have come about by some explicable or ultimately explicable process. It couldn't have just jumped into existence spontaneously. That's the point.
This whole plot is directly out of Star Trek Next Generation, Season 6, Episode 20, The Chase.
Our scientists seeded the primordial oceans of many worlds where life was in its infancy. The seed codes directed your evolution toward a physical form resembling ours. This body you see before you, which is of course shaped as yours is shaped. For you are the end result. The seed codes also contain this message, which was scattered in fragments on many different worlds. It was our hope that you would have to come together in fellowship and companionship to hear this message. And if you can see and hear me, our hope has been fulfilled.
So, Professor Dawkins was not against intelligent design, just certain types of designers, such as God.
You know, if biological evolution here requires the intervention of intelligence, who created those other beings? You see, all they're doing is pushing the problem further out. You know, eventually you got to get to a first cause. And ideally, you really got to get to how does a first self-replicating cell manifest itself out of non-living material, right? I mean, you got to get, you can't just go to chimps. You got to go further back than that, right? Well, I mean, they're forced to go on faith. Ooh, that's that crazy religious word, right? Because they have no evidence for what they're talking about.
It is belief in the absence of evidence. Now, I don't propose to tell anybody what to believe, but for me, believing when there's no compelling evidence is a mistake. The idea is to withhold belief until there is compelling evidence.
And yet, over and over and over again, we're seeing stuff like this, aren't we? Article after article talking about other Earth-like planets out there. You know, there could be 1 billion Earths in our galaxy alone, 40 billion, 8.8 billion. Oh, and incidentally, they're finding all these Earths by looking through telescopes millions of light years away, or even thousands of light years away. Both are absurd. You know how far a light year is? 6 trillion. Yeah, it's nearly 6 trillion miles. They're telling us they're spotting black holes 55 million light years away. If they got telescopes that powerful, turn the telescope on the moon. I want to count the rivets on the buggy. Or shut up. You're full of crap. There's no way you're looking that far out there, but they're always pumping it in your head. There's other Earths-like out there because they have to. They have to prop up their theory, you know, that there are ancient aliens out there.
They're pushing that vendetta. Believe in anything, except for some kind of God.
When you proceed from a false premise, your conclusions are going to be sheer madness. This is why we have so many crisis scenarios going on in so-called modern science. And it brings me to my last slide here. Which one is it then? We have all our government-funded textbooks telling us we live on an oblate spheroid. We have this guy saying, no, you live on a pear. It's a pear shape. You have NASA and other government organizations like NASA showing us perfectly spherical worlds. And then you have the Bible saying, nope, you live in a snow globe. So which one is it? I say, look, as for me and my house, let God be true and every man a liar.
Well said, Rob Skiba. Well said. You are greatly missed. This video has been brought to you by the Flat Earth Institute of Science. Thank you all for watching. We've also got a lot of source material in this video's description, so please feel free to look into this further. And if you'd like to argue about something presented here, please come join our debate board and discuss this with us in Flat Earth Biology.